What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be taking a much closer look at the Ruinous Effigy exotic trace rifle just added into Destiny 2 Season of Arrivals via an exotic quest. Now, most people are going to play a couple Crucible games and throw up a review, but because I'm a madman, I got 6 people together, all with the masterworked version of this weapon, and ran them through the largest raid in Destiny's history, Last Wish, to see how this weapon really performs in an endgame environment. And so, let's get started. First things first, let's take a look at this weapon's perks. Intrinsically, it has transmutation. Final blows with this weapon collapse victims into void transmutation spheres. Now this goes with its other unique perk, evolution. Transmutation spheres you create can be picked up and wielded as weapons by you or your allies. You can normally shoot for a light attack, you can kind of aim down sights for a heavy attack, and you can also guard like you would with a sword, and it drains nearby enemies as well. Now that all comes up with its special catalyst, which adds another perk. So this weapon deals increased damage against targets damaged by transmutation spheres. So it's kind of like Rampage in that it only affects this weapon, but it stacks on top of a buff and a debuff. So could this actually become a DPS monster? Well, let's find out in the first encounter of Last Wish against Kalli. So, the first part of this encounter is holding plates, and to do that you're going to have to defend against a bunch of taken thralls, and this weapon is perfect against those guys. Kills them really fast, and you can just pick up the orbs you create, and especially guarding is going to do the big suck and just kill those guys really quickly actually. Not to mention slamming kills them easily, especially if they're grouped up. So against the adds, it's great, but you're also trying to save your ammo for the boss fight. Now let's talk about that boss fight. Firstly, we did a control damage phase, so we didn't use the balls at all, we just normally shot her, and as you can see, it wasn't great. Around a quarter of health the first time, like we really didn't do any sort of damage to write home about. Then we started mixing in some different strategies. Our first idea was everyone get a ball and slam it yourself, so you do that slam damage and then start DPSing Kalli, and hopefully we'll actually get something out of that. Turns out, wasn't the best thing, mainly because everyone coming in at somewhat different times and all trying to get a slam, especially since every single boss in Destiny does a slam attack and pushes you away, which is a whole nother topic, but it really doesn't go well because you need time to set up a damage phase. Someone needs to put down a well, someone needs to put a debuff on, and if everyone is running with these balls, you don't really get to do that. So that didn't really work out. But there was another approach, and this one was to have just one person with the ball guarding, which kind of damages Kalli, but also takes the longest time. Like, you don't use up the ball as you're guarding as fast as if you were just slamming, for example. So it's going to make that damage boost last for a very long time, and the other 5 people with the Ruinous Effigies will all be getting a damage bonus. And it turns out that was pretty effective, and we did actually achieve the one phase just barely doing that strategy. There may have been one Nova Bomb thrown in, but hey, you didn't see it. Anyways, that means that overall, I'm giving this weapon a 7 out of 10 in this encounter. Certainly above average, achieved the one phase, but like just barely, and you do have to jump through a lot of hoops to make that happen. Now moving on from there, we have Shiro Chi, and here we have to do 1/6 of her health or the whole team just wipes. There's also a lot more adds to deal with, and it turns out the Ruinous Effigy against Shuro Chi is cracked beyond belief. Like, the entire team was saying, oh my goodness, this thing's actually good, this thing's fantastic, because firstly, it can deal with Shiro Chi pretty easily because the buff that you gain from the orbs seems to last around 10 to 15 seconds. So that means that one person can slam at the very start, and that's pretty much an entire damage phase for Shuro Chi. So you're going to get that damage boost the entire time, and this is capable of, reaching that threshold pretty much every single time pretty easily. And then against the adds, oh my goodness, it's phenomenal. those balls it produces are actually really powerful. You can one-hit kill the Eyes of Riven, for example, with the slam attack, no problem. I mean, you can see how much damage it does to even the yellow bar ogres, and it's quite significant. Not only that, if you are just guarding when all the thralls are spawning around Shiro Chi, you just insta-melt them. Like, it almost feels like you're in a super. You're just killing everything around you. It really feels phenomenal. So we were all just having a blast using the Ruinous Effigy in this encounter. It felt at home, phenomenal at taking out adds, and also able to output DPS when you needed it to. Honestly, in this encounter, 9 out of 10. Just loved it. Oh, and one more thing. If you're putting in commands, when you're on the plate and taking damage, you can guard with a ball to take less damage. That's awesome. Anyways, moving on from there, we have the Morgeth Encounter. And this is another important one-phase. If a gun can't one-phase Morgeth, it doesn't have DPS chops. Simple as that. However, similar to the other encounters, of course, you're going to have to kill a lot of adds before that point. And here, again, those balls become so effective. Because all of the enemies are spawning in very specific locations and they spawn in groups, you can just pick up one of the transmutation orbs, stand there and guard as they're spawning, and just kill everyone. And if there is an Eye of Riven, just do the heavy attack right after you've killed all the thralls and kill that guy. Like, it's actually crazy that this gun, like, spawns other guns almost, and it also makes it super ammo efficient. The amount of enemies you can kill with that orb, and that doesn't take up any ammo. It actually does have a little bit of an ammo counter itself, but it doesn't take the ammo out of the gun itself. Like, it's just so powerful. But then we have the damage phase. So here we let off the attack with a couple of slams from the orbs to get that increased DPS, and then we start going to town, and whew, it's gonna be a close one, and it is. We get a legitimate, like, photo finish. Again, there may have been someone who lacked some cojones and threw a Nova Bomb, but I think that's just a weird looking Axion dart, don't you? Anyways, the point is this weapon, like, barely crossed the line, like, barely. And I think the problem is that that damage bonus that you get, which is like the only thing that makes this weapon even in a conversation for DPS, it goes away pretty quickly, and there's not a huge way to refill it. Whereas Kalli, you go into the doors and you come out and there's adds, so you can get more orbs and reapply the debuff, right? Whereas with Shiro Chi, kind of same thing. With Morgeth, there isn't really adds nearby, so you have the one and done orb slams at the beginning and you can't really get another one. So that is the downside here, and therefore, even though it's fantastic against the adds, not great against Morgeth, I'm gonna have to give it a 6 out of 10. That's mean 6.5 out of 10. Moving on from there, we have the Vault Encounter, and this is always, to me, a very interesting one. You know, we have all these boss fights, and then we have kind of a very normal encounter. This will emulate what you're facing 90% of the time when you're playing Destiny, which is just normal adds and then some powerful yellow bars. So, how does it fare here? Well, we've been over that it's great against the red bars, and the same is true whether that's in the gun version or you're using one of the orbs you've picked up. It's really effective. Of course, the big question is, can it deal with the knights? And can it deal with them quickly? Because if it doesn't, they wipe your team. Well, when you're actually shooting the gun, it's not terrible, but also not fantastic. You're going to want someone to back you up if you're taking the knights down with just the normal beam of this trace rifle. But if you do have the orbs, it's actually pretty cracked, because one orb slam does about 1/3 of the health of a knight. So that means that for the rest 2/3, you have a gun that's doing more damage than normal, and then you can actually take those guys out in not too much trouble. But what that really means is that taking out the knights becomes a fun mini game. Seriously, everyone grabs orbs, and then the first knight to peek his head out just gets dunked on by like 3 people and insta-killed. That's what this encounter divulged into when we were doing it. Everyone's like, yeet, dunk on him, and everyone's like yelling and running around the map with the orbs. Like, it was a blast. It was so much fun. The most fun I've ever had in this encounter, just dunking on those knights with your teammates. So that is a blast. And honestly, if you do have the help of a teammate, like 2 people dunking on a knight, basically killing them just with that and then finishing them off with the laser, it's, again, pretty efficient. And we're talking about an orb that's produced when you shoot like 5 rounds at a thrall. You're not using a significant investment to produce these orbs, and these orbs are actually pretty powerful. However, you do have to put away fun and look at efficiency, and there was some slightly panicky moments when there's only 1 person with this weapon to deal with these guys. However, it is just a special, so you can run a sword alongside it to save you from any kind of weird scenarios. But I think overall, I would give this weapon an 8 out of 10 in this encounter. Not like upper echelon, certainly better and more fun than average. But moving on from there, we have the big daddy of damage phases against Riven. And of course, we going for the cheese because we want to see exactly how much damage this weapon can do in a short period of time. Now, we are doing the most efficient method that we did find for DPS dealing with this weapon, and that is having 1 person with an orb inflicting damage and then boosting the damage for the rest of us. Almost like 1 person is using a tractor cannon, so to speak. So we had 1 person, as you can see, there guarding, and actually the guarding sphere is pretty big, so he was able to hit Riven kind of in the chin from that area, and we were just shooting and got her to about 1/2 of her health, which certainly isn't nothing, but also obviously isn't that amazing. And it turns out we dealt around 300,000 to 400,000 damage, and again, that's pretty average, to be honest. And therefore the score is also average, 5 out of 10 against Riven. But there is actually 1 more encounter we need to go over, and that is the Queen's Walk. So here, you're transporting an orb, and now you're transporting a lot more orbs with this weapon. And yeah, you're running through a bunch of ads. This thing is great again. When you're on the outside, it's pretty efficient at killing enemies, but when you're on the inside, oh my gosh, it's great. I mean, you can see I just spawn kill all of these taken. I have never seen the inside area here this devoid of ads because we're so good at killing them. Like, it is so good for taking out these low-level ads. Just run through them while doing the big suck maneuver, and you just kill everyone. So in the Queen's Walk encounter, very fun, pretty darn effective. I've got to give it an 8 out of 10. And then that brings us to the final rating. Overall, how was it in this raid? Well, it's certainly great against the ads, but of course this raid is so built around boss fights. Every single encounter is a boss fight except for the vault. And therefore, I think the overall rating is going to be a 7 out of 10. Certainly above average, nothing top tier, but a very fun and interesting experience nonetheless. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.